What's up, everybody? I think the programming's working. You do a history about white history, and a lot of people are like, nah, I ain't touching that. But I got a feeling if I title this video Creation of the White Devils, it'll probably do a lot better. We'll see. I am thoroughly curious about how they went from being the barbarians of the ancient world and then pop out the other side of the Black D as one of the more civilized cultures in the world. Maybe it was just all part of the plan of our creator, Yakub. I know today's April 1st, but I'm not making this up. This is an actual thing. You can look this up for yourself. It's just Jacob, pronounced in the traditional style. And right off the bat, you can tell he's really smart. He's got like 3 brains up there. So Yakub is a figure in the mythology of the Nation of Islam. We'll just say NOI on that, and its offshoots. According to the NOI's doctrine, Yakub was a black Meccan scientist who lived 6,600 years ago and created the white race. According to the story, following his discovery of the law of attraction and repulsion, he gathered followers and began the creation of the white race through a form of selective breeding referred to as grafting on the island of Patmos. Yakub perished at the age of 150, but his followers continued the process after his death. According to the NOI, the white race was created with an evil nature and were destined to rule over black people for a period of 6,000 years through the practice of, quote, tricknology, which ended in 1914, which happens to be World War I and the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire. The story and idea of Yakub originated in the writings of NOI's founder, Wallace Fard Muhammad. And this is what Wiki says about him. Reportedly born in February 1877, disappeared 1934. He arrived in Detroit in 1930 with an ambiguous background and several aliases, and proselytized syncretic Islamic teachings to the city's black population. Detroit, the Mecca of the West. Actually, Detroit was one of the highest per capita incomes in America up until the 70s, 80s, and it was destroyed by a certain party's bad management. Want to guess which one? Okay, back to the story. Fard taught that the Blick man is the original man and that the wheat race were devils created by eugenics. People who start new religions are usually the most colorful people ever. According to the story, at the start of human history, a variety of types of black people inhabited the moon when a black god scientist became frustrated that all those living on the moon did not speak one language. He blew up the moon. A piece of this destroyed moon became Earth, which was then populated by a community of surviving, morally righteous Blick people, some of whom settled in the city of Mecca. Yakub was born a short distance outside the city and was among the third of original Blick people who were discontented with life in this society. A member of the Meccan branch of the tribe of Shabazz, Yakub acquired the nickname Big Head because of his unusually large head and arrogance. You see what they did there? That's like literally and figuratively big head. At the age of 6, a lot of sixes in this story, he discovered the law of attraction and repulsion by playing with magnets made of steel. He connected this to the rules of human attraction. The unlike people would attract, manipulate the original like people. I think there was supposed to be an and in there. By the age of 18, he had finished his education and learned everything that Mecca universities had to teach him. Widely known as a successful scientist, he then discovered that the original Blick man contained both a black germ and a brown germ, with the brown being the recessive one, and believed that if he could separate them by, quote, grafting, he could graft the brown germ into a white germ. This insight led to a plan to create a new people who, using tricks and lies, could rule the original Blick man and destroy them. He attracted a following but caused trouble, leading the Meccan authorities to exile him and his 59,999 followers. I guess he wasn't allowed to have 60,000. Once again, inverted sixes there. They then went to an isle in the Aegean Sea called Pelin, which Elijah Muhammad identified as modern-day Patmos. Yakob developed Christianity to fool the Blick people into supporting him and to trick them into not knowing their true history. Once there, he established a despotic regime, starting to breed out the black traits of his followers. This entailed breeding new children, with those who were too dark being offed at birth and fed to wild animals or incinerated. Yakob passed on at the age of 150, but his followers carried on his work as he passed down his knowledge. After 600 years, the wheat race was created. All the races other than the Blick race were byproducts of Yakub's work, as the red, yellow, and brown were created during the, quote, bleaching process, with the red germ coming out of the brown, the yellow coming out of the red, and from the yellow, the white. The brutal conditions of their creation determined the evil nature of the new race. By lying to the mother of the baby, this lie was born into the very nature of the white baby. And the red rum of the Blick people was also born in them, or made by nature a liar and red rummer. As a group of people distinct from the original Asiatic race, the wheat race are bereft of divinity, being intrinsically prone to lying and brutality. According to the nation's teachings, Yakub's newly created wheat race sowed discord among the Blick race, and thus were exiled to live in the caves of Europe. They don't list it here, but I'm assuming they're meaning the Caucasus. And this is no joke. In my early 20s down in Memphis, I had an old Blick man telling me that Caucasian was the cold caves, or Caucasian. So this story has made the rounds. And remember, the Nation of Islam used to have like 500,000 followers. It was huge during the civil rights movement. But I'm getting the feeling this is a lot like Scientology, where the top members are the only ones that get the true knowledge. In this narrative, it was in Europe that the wheat race engaged in bestiality and degenerated, losing everything except their language. They were kept in Europe by guards. It sounds funny when you say it like that, but hey, Hadrian's Wall, Great Wall of China, there's been a lot of people kept over where they're at by guards. Elijah Muhammad also asserted that some of the new wheat race tried to become black, but failed. As a result, they became gorillas and other monkeys. I see what you did there. To help the whites develop, the ruling Allah then sent prophets to them, the first of whom was Moses, who taught them to cook and wear clothes. Moses tried to civilize them, but eventually gave up and blew up 300 of the most troublesome with dynamite. According to the nation, Jesus was also a prophet sent to try to civilize the wheat race. However, they had learned to use, quote, tricknology, a plan to use their trickery and lack of empathy and emotion to usurp power and enslave the black population, bringing the first captives to America. According to doctrine, Yakub's progeny were destined to rule for 6,000 years before the original Blick peoples of the world regained dominance, the end of which was the year 1914. Now, Fard disappeared in 1934, so it sounds like he's using World War I as the basis for the start of a new age. Not to be outdone, Frank Edward wrote Yakob, the father of the wheat devil race. And then there was the Holy Tablets written in 1996. And he had a lot of time on his hands, evidently. I stumbled across this years ago thinking it was something else, and I got into it, and wow, it makes what we just heard sound like Webster's dictionary. I might have to do a video on that. I got things to do before it rains here. So yeah, I guess that's how all the races were created. They blew up the moon, came down to Mecca, put a little red dye number 7 in the brown germs, and voila. That'll show Manly P. Hall and his 7 root races. Happy April Fools. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Static out.